Welcome back to Luke's Properties YouTube channel. In this video, I'm going to show you exactly how to retire in just 5 years. I'm going to show you exactly how to buy a buy-to-let portfolio that will replace your 9 to 5 income and allow you to retire in 5 years time. You don't need to wait until you're 67 to retire. You need to watch this video, make some notes, and copy this exact plan behind me. If you do this, I guarantee you'll be able to retire in 5 years time. Now, I'm not just making this up. I haven't pulled this out of thin air. This is a real life plan that I've actually implemented myself. Over the last 5 years, I've done exactly this. I've managed to buy my own portfolio of buy-to-let properties. And because I've been doing this consistently over the last 5 years, I'm now at a stage where I don't need to work anymore. And if I wanted to, I could retire because I've replaced the average income in the UK with passive income from my buy-to-let portfolio. So I'm speaking from experience. And I think you should do this too. There's so much misleading content out there from property gurus telling you that you have to buy 10, 20, 30 houses, or you have to buy these massive HMOs, or you have to do buy, refurbish, rent, refinance, BRRR, to be able to build a portfolio and retire early. But I'm living proof that you don't need to do any of that. You can simply buy very straightforward vanilla buy-to-lets. And if you aim to buy one every year for a few years, then I guarantee you'll be able to retire in 5 years time. Property doesn't have to be complicated. You don't need to have hundreds of houses. That's all ego. And anyone who tells you that is probably lying or trying to impress you or trying to trick you into making you think that you need them to achieve financial freedom. And I'm here to tell you that you don't. You simply need to stick to this plan behind me, implement it, be disciplined and focused for 5 years, and you can retire young enough to enjoy it. Because after all, we only get one life. So why work until you're 67 and retire on a pension that isn't even enough to live on, when you could build a buy-to-let portfolio now over the next 5 years, retire early and live off of your passive income, as well as the appreciation of your portfolio, which if you refinance your houses as they go up in value, you won't pay any tax when you refinance because it's debt and you don't get taxed on debt. This is what wealthy people do. So if you want to be wealthy and you want to retire early, then I suggest you watch this video, make some notes, and stick to this exact plan. So let's get into it. So the first step is you need to find a £100,000 house somewhere in the UK. You can find houses like this in the northwest of England, in the northeast of England, or over in Wales, where I invest. Generally speaking, the house needs to be in good condition. So around 7 to 8 out of 10 condition. We're not looking for the worst house on the best street. We're not looking for a house that needs a huge refurbishment. We're looking for a very straightforward, almost turnkey buy-to-let. You want it to be pretty much ready to be rented out as it is. You may need to paint and decorate and give it a deep clean, but generally speaking, it should be ready to be rented as it is. We don't want to waste time paying for builders, paying for building materials, because time outside of the market, time doing refurbishments, time trying to work with builders is all time wasted, and time that you could be benefiting from having a tenant in there paying you a passive income while the house is going up in value, which is definitely going to happen over the next few years. So we're looking for a very straightforward vanilla buy-to-let. It can be a mid-terrace or an end terrace. It needs to be in a good area with good transport links, with schools and jobs nearby. A 2 up, 2 down would be perfect. If you can find a 3-bedroom, then even better. So we find this £100,000 house. By the way, I've bought multiple houses like this for around £95,000. If you scroll through some of my YouTube videos, you'll see me break down exactly how I've bought houses for £95,000. You'll see walkthroughs of these properties and the exact numbers. So have a scroll and binge some of my content. It's going to help you and it's free. So why wouldn't you? So you find this £100,000 house. To buy this house, it's going to cost you around £25,000 as a deposit. You're going to have to pay around £1,500 to a solicitor. If this is your first property, then you're going to pay £0 in stamp duty. And if it's the first time you're using a mortgage broker, then it's probably going to cost you around £500 to work with them. That brings your total capital employed on your first buy-to-let to £27,000. Then you're going to rent this house out for around £725 per month. And at the time of making this video, the Bank of England base rate has just dropped to 4.25%. So you may even be able to get a cheaper mortgage than this. But I've kept the interest rate at 4.5% just for the sake of this video. And it's always good to be reserved with your numbers. But you could even get a cheaper mortgage than this. But let's presume you're going to get a 4.5% mortgage on an interest only. That's going to bring your payments to £281 a month. It's then wise to put aside around £50 a month for minor maintenance here and there. Sometimes there will be no maintenance. Every now and again, a toilet piston might break, a door lock might break. Something will happen where you'll need to do some maintenance. So it's always wise to put aside around £50 a month for that. Your insurance will be £30 a month, and after all of those costs, your net rent will be £364 per month, or £4,368 per year. Now £4,368 divided by your total capital employed of £27,000 times 100 is going to give you a 14.5% return on your capital employed, which basically means you're getting paid a 14.5% return every year from the rental income alone, not taking into account the capital appreciation as the house price increases. So every year you're getting a 14.5% return on your £27,000 invested, which works out to be £4,368 per year in net passive income. So that's your first house. You've bought it, you've rented it out, well done to you. Now let's look at how things start to evolve and how things start to compound over the next few years. So house prices are set to rise on average by around 25% by 2029. In some areas, house prices will increase by more, in some areas, slightly less. But on average, 25% appreciation over the next 5 years is very realistic, maybe even slightly reserved. My houses have increased in value by around 30% over the last 4 years. But let's be reserved and let's say house prices are going to increase by 25%, which works out to be around 5% per year. So let's look at what happens over the next few years. So you've bought this first house, it's cost you £27,000 and you're making £4,368 per year. That's year one. Then you get to year two. Hopefully you've been saving up this £4,368 as well, and you can put that with your savings from your job income and try and save another £30,000, and then you buy house number two. You try and save around £30,000 and that's going to pay for your second buy to let. Now because this is going to be your second property, you're going to have to pay stamp duty, which will be around 4% of the purchase price if it's in Wales and 5% if it's in England. You won't pay £500 to a broker because you should be on some sort of membership, so your broker fee will only be around £200. You're still going to have to pay around £1,500 to a solicitor, but you're going to have to pay around £4,000 to £5,000 in stamp duty. So let's say, for argument's sake, just to keep things nice and simple, this second house is going to cost you around £30,000 to buy it. We're going to find a similar house to the first house that we bought. It's going to be worth around £100,000. You're going to put £30,000 in. That's going to cover your deposit and all of your fees. And then you're going to repeat the process. You're going to rent this house out for £364 per month, which is £4,368 per year. Now you have two houses, both paying you around £364 per year. A great position to be in. Then we get to year three. And again, hopefully you've been saving money. Maybe you've been joint venturing with someone, a friend, a family, and you're only having to save around £15,000 each. Or maybe you're making around £50,000, £60,000 a year, and you can be tight with yourself, you can budget, and you can put aside around £30,000 every year to invest in your future, your financial future. So we get to year three and you repeat the process. You find another £100,000 house, £30,000 will cover your deposit and your fees. And again, you rent the house out, and again, this house makes you around £364 per month. Now you have three houses, all making you around £364 per month, which is a fantastic position to be in. Remember, this income is passive. You don't have to work for it. This income comes into your bank account while you're asleep. Now, this is where the magic starts to happen. And this is where your wealth really starts to compound. And this is why I always tell people, if you can just buy 3 houses, you're already on the way to becoming very wealthy, and you're not going to need to work anymore. So around £90,000 to £100,000 is the magic figure, because once you get that amount invested in assets, in buy-to-let properties, you're already on the way to becoming a wealthy person. That's the benchmark. If you can just get £90,000 to £100,000 invested in buy-to-lets, I promise you, you're never going to have to work again. That's what you should be aiming for. So you buy house number 3, you repeat the process, and you rent it out. Now pay attention, because this is where the magic happens. Now year 4 rolls by, and rather than having to invest another £30,000 to buy house number 4, house number 1 will have appreciated by 5% per year. If we go back to the house prices that are set to rise by 25%, because remember, house prices are going to increase by 5% a year. So you've owned house number 1 for 3 years, which means this house is now worth £115,000. You're going to refinance that house and use that additional equity of £15,000 plus the rental income that you've received over the last 3 years of £4,368 per year. When you put that all together, you're going to have around £28,000, which is enough to go and buy another 95 to £100,000 house. But you haven't had to invest your own money into this one. You've refinanced house number one because it's appreciated over time. You're going to use that saved rental income plus the appreciation. You refinance house number one, you use the additional £15,000 equity and the £13,000 rent. That gives you enough to go and buy house number four. So house number one has paid for house number four. You haven't had to put any more of your own money into this house. This is why I say getting to £90,000 to £100,000 invested in buy-to-lets is the benchmark. Once you get to this stage, you're already on the way, you've got momentum, and your first house has now paid for your fourth house. You haven't had to put any more of your own money in. You've just refinanced the additional equity because your first house has increased, you've saved your rental income, and that money has paid for house number four. So again, you repeat the process. You rent this house out, it pays you £364 per month in passive income. Now you've got four houses. Pretty cool, right? So year five rolls by, and again, you've got another trick up your sleeve because you've now owned house number two for 3 years. So you're going to do the same trick. House number two is now going to be worth £115,000. You're going to refinance house number two, use that additional equity plus your saved rental income of around £13,000 to go and buy house number five. Now house number two has paid for house number five. You haven't had to put any more of your own money in to buy this fifth house. So now you have 5 houses and you've only really had to pay for 3 of them. The other 2 have been bought with passive income that you've received over the years and the capital appreciation as your assets have increased in value. You haven't had to do anything. All you've done is buy the first 3 houses, rent them out. You've sat back, waited and been patient. So now you have 5 houses. At this point, we're going to be in the year 2029. Your portfolio value is going to be £575,000 because remember, each of these houses is increasing in value by around 5% per year. Now, another reason why buy-to-let property is the best investment you can make is because rents also increase by around 5% per year. So when we look at your 2029 numbers, every year your rental income has increased by around 5%. So by 2029, your first house is going to be paying you around £540 per month in passive income. Your second house is going to be paying you around £504 per month. Your third house is going to be paying you £469 a month. Your fourth house will be paying you £434 a month. And your fifth house, at the end of year 5, will be paying you £399 per month. So where you were making around £364 per month in 2025, every year, each house you've bought, the rent has increased by 5%. So you're making more than £364 per month because your mortgage has stayed the same and rents have increased, and so has your cash flow. So by 2029, your portfolio value will be £575,000 because all the houses are increasing by 5% per year, and your net rent is £2,345 per month, which is more than the average income in the UK. You've replaced the average income with passive income from your investments, and you only had to buy 3 of those 5 houses because the other 2 were paid for by your initial investments. So you're making £2,345 per month in passive income, which works out to be £28,140 per year. This is enough to quit your 9 to 5, and if you wanted to, you could now retire. All of this from investing around £87,000 and committing to a 5-year plan of patience and discipline. By doing this, you can retire early. You don't have to wait until you're 67 to retire. You need a plan like this, you need discipline, and you need patience, and you can quit work and do whatever you want to do in 5 years' time. Maybe you have hobbies that you want to pursue. Maybe you can start that business that you've always wanted to start. Maybe you can pursue some of your passions. Maybe some of your passions can turn into your vocation. Maybe you can get paid for a skill that you have and work part-time. The point is, you'll have options. Because of the smart decisions and investments that you've made in 2025, you could easily be retired by the end of 2029. And I don't know about you, but I don't want to work until I'm 67. Any day now, I'm about to have my first child, and I feel so privileged to be in a position where I don't need to work. I have a portfolio like this that's paying me passive income that's going to allow me to be a present father. I'm going to be able to put all my time, effort and energy into raising a quality human being. I get to be a good role model. I'm not going to get pulled away from my family for 8 hours a day for 40 hours a week for the next 40 years because of the investments that I've made over the last 5 years. And there's nothing special about me. I'm just a normal person. I'm quite ambitious and quite determined. But anyone can do this. You don't have to be a rocket scientist. You just need to have a plan, be disciplined, and stick to it. By doing this, you can retire in 5 years' time. You don't need to work until you're 67. That is a complete myth. That's what the system wants you to do. I'm living proof that you don't need to do that. You don't need 100 houses either. You don't need HMOs. You don't need to do buy, refurbish, refinance. All you have to do is find 5 simple buy-to-lets like this, buy one every year for 3 years, and then by year 4 and year 5, your first 2 houses will pay for house 4 and 5. And if you want to, you can keep repeating this process. So in another year's time, you could refinance house number 3 and use that to buy house number 6 and keep adding to your passive income. At least at this point, you'll be financially free, you won't need to work, and you can just focus on your family, focus on enjoying life, and use your portfolio to fund your lifestyle. And every year, as house prices increase, you can refinance one of your houses and buy another. And by year 8, it's likely you're going to have £1 million portfolio if you stick to this plan and keep recycling your money. This is the path to freedom, guys. Buying assets that pay you passive income and depreciate over time. This is how you retire in 5 years rather than waiting until you're 67. This is how you create your own pension, your own economy, without relying on someone else to support you when you retire. Now, if you want someone to help you do this, I'll put a link in the description below. Click the link and there'll be an option for you to book a call in with me. On that call, we can have a discussion and we can work out if we could be a good fit for each other and whether I could be a good mentor for you. If not, then just copy this plan, implement it into your life, set a 5-year goal, and you can retire in 5 years' time and live a life on your own terms. After all, we only get one life, so you should be living that life exactly how you want to, not how someone else wants you to. I hope you've enjoyed this video, guys, and as always, I'll see you on the next one.